Hi there. My name is Andra Brill, and I am the founder of HappyMindfulFamilies.com, and I am so excited that you're here today for this incredible webinar. I've been working on it for many years. It's actually the culmination of many years of work. And today we're going to talk about calm and confident parenting. 3 steps to keeping your cool when your kids are losing theirs. My sense is that if you are anything like me, there are moments when you feel like you are just losing your cool. Or even today, I was dropping my 6-year-old daughter off at school, and another parent said, "Sometimes I feel like I just want a vacation from my family and from my life." So if that's you, if you ever have that moment, you are in the right place. I'm going to begin by sharing a little bit about what we are going to do together in the next hour. And, oh, what do you know? I don't actually, I don't have, okay, I do have a clock. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to very briefly talk a little bit about me. So for those of you who don't know me or haven't worked with me, or I don't know you, I'll share a little bit about who I am and why I do this work. The meat and potatoes of what we're going to do is really about how to stay calm. And I'm going to talk about a framework that includes 3 threes of staying calm. And really, it's a framework for building confidence and connection. And frameworks are great, and all the theory is great, but I think the most important thing, and my hope, is that by the end of our time together, you will have concrete, practical, simple strategies that you can actually try out and let me know how they work. And at the end, I have a super special offer for the month of June coming up that I am very excited to share with you. So let's get going. Let's begin. About me. So here are some of the things that you probably want to know about me. I am a mom and a wife, and I love dim sum. And yesterday I did a podcast interview, and someone said, "What's dim sum? Is that soup?" So dim sum is the Chinese, it's the Chinese tradition of dumplings and little bites. And so in our family, dim sum and going to the Chinese restaurant and eating dumplings is something that we all love to do, but it's really, I could probably eat dim sum probably 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, and not get tired of it. Professionally, I am a former elementary school teacher. I have taught every grade from preschool up to 6th grade in the public school system. I was a literacy coach for several years, and then after I earned my doctorate in education, I became the director of a teacher preparation program at the University of Denver, and I did that for many years as well. And then in terms of Happy Mindful Families, I am a meditator and have had my own regular practice since 2004. And I now spend most of my time as a mindfulness instructor. I work with public schools and also also with families. And the last book I read, I was trying to think, the last book that I finished was actually Ivy and Bean, which was a read aloud with my 6-year-old daughter. So that is a little bit about me. And this is a little bit about, it says what I do, but this is really sort of my approach to parenting. So it's a little bit really about how my mind works. So I think about myself as being part science geek and science geek. So what's really interesting is I realized recently that all that you're going to hear today actually started when I was 10 years old, and I did a report on the brain. And it's amazing how much more we know now about the brain and how much we've learned in the last 35 years. It's also amazing how much we still don't know. So I love neuroscience, and I love the connections and reading the research between mindful parenting and intentional, kind, peaceful parenting, and all the science that really backs it up. I'm also part personal trainer. And when I think about this, here's what that means to me. So if you want to have an exercise regime, you can just go out and do it by yourself, right? You can read about it, you can just go do it. But for many of us, that having a personal trainer is really helpful. And it's really helpful because it's someone who is focused just on you. So what are your problem areas, and where is it that you want to build more strength or more stamina? And so having a personal trainer helps, one, with motivation, but it also helps you reach your goals. So I think about myself as personal trainer. And the other thing to say is that I'm not a therapist. So in terms of getting support and help for parenting, there's therapy on one end. And on the other end, there are all the books and all the classes and everything that we find online. And while all of that is really helpful, and there's some great classes and there's some brilliant people sharing wonderful things online, there's a big difference between reading things and gaining knowledge and going to classes and actually building your own capacity in the moment to respond in your family, in your home, the way you want to respond. And so I feel like what I do is right in the middle between sort of intense therapy that's about your own interpersonal work, which again, I don't do, and sort of the impersonal general knowledge that you can get from books or classes or the internet. So I'm part science geek, part personal trainer, and part fairy godmother. And the fairy godmother part is because really often what I ask people is, if you had one wish, what would it be? And then I see my job is really trying to help people make that wish a reality for themselves and their family. And so this brings us to the first three of the three of staying calm. Oh, look at that. The font is, the layout got a little messed up. But anyway, the first three. Number one, here are the ways that I go about this. So the science geek part of me, I am really big on the science and the theory and why this works. So it's, I have been accused in the past of being a little bit hoovy groovy, and I think that's true. And everything that I'm going to talk to you about is really based on science. And science, when I say science, it's the science as we know it today. So I try to stay as current as possible. And this is how we understand the way the brain works and how understanding that is going to actually help us stay calmer as parents. The second part is strategy. So again, it's very, very important to me that that you, at the end of this, that you have strategies that will work for you and your family. And the third part, which goes with the being part fairy godmother, for a while I talked about the fact that really what I was offering was magic, but there's really nothing magic about it. I mean, there is, but my daughter actually corrected me and she was like, "Mama, it's really all about love." And I realized that it is really all about love, and the magic comes from that sense of connection that we have with other people, with our family, with our children, with our partners. It's that sense of connection that comes, that is sort of the manifestation of love in our lives. So I like to think that there's really this balance between the science and the love and the actual doing part. The second three that we're going to talk about today has to do with time and sort of when. So the first three are about how to stay calm, like the different pieces, and the second three are about when, and we're going to talk about different strategies for before, during, and after a challenging moment as a parent. My sense is that most parenting advice is really about what to do in the moment when things are difficult. So what do you say during the whole thing, and how does that work? My personal philosophy is that as parents and as the grown-ups, modeling and being very intentional about our behavior before a situation starts to get escalated and challenging is really, really important, and that what we do after a really challenging situation is sometimes even more the most important time. So if you think about it, we'll use this as an example several times, but getting out the door in the morning in my house is sometimes a bit challenging. And often what happens is I have some strategies for before, but I'll give you an example of when I wasn't using my strategies, and then the during is when I'm yelling and frustrated, and my daughter is yelling and frustrated, and that does actually happen, even though I know all of these things. And so really then the other place where I feel that parenting, that you can use your parenting skills is really what happens afterwards and how do we repair. So we'll spend a lot of time here. The third three is going to change the way that you think about time, space, and your superpower. And so this is really the three strategies that I'm going to give you for the before, to try to avoid getting to that place where you lose your calm and your kids are losing their calm too. So again, this is really important. And I love this picture, right? Like, this is us. Change the way you think about time, space, and your superpower. I used to call it the better than science fiction solution, but I think it's really just about being a superhero in your own home. So this slide is really about what I believe and my philosophy, and I just feel like it's very important for you to, or for me to really share this with you so you know where I'm coming from. So number one for me is this belief that children want to belong. Really, children want to feel connected. And one of the ways that I talk about this is that when our kids are misbehaving, when they are acting out, or when we start to get frustrated with them, it's actually a message to us that they want to feel more connected, which I feel is a switch and to how we normally think about it. I think often we're like, oh my goodness, they're totally pushing my buttons, they're totally provoking me and manipulating me and all these other things. But I actually offer it as the way that I think about my child's behavior, and I offer it to you to experiment with and see what happens. Second, as the adult, we get to choose whether we react out of habit or respond with intention. And here's the thing, we all react out of habit. This is what we do. We react out of habit. And my mindfulness practice and the work that I do is really about helping myself have a little bit of space, so that instead of just something happens and I react instantly, something happens and I have just a little bit of, I have this like a few seconds or milliseconds where I could say, oh wait, what is really going on here? And what do I want to go next? What do I want to have happen next? What I want to say about this, and this goes back to the personal trainer part, it's really hard to create new habits. It just is. It's really hard. And that's why having a parenting coach or a personal trainer for your parenting is really super helpful, because it's someone who you can check in with, who's really going to support you to change your habits. I feel like I'm talking really quickly, so I'm going to try to slow down a little bit and have a drink of water. The third point here is that parenting is hard work. And it's not even so much that parenting is hard work, it's that it's important because it's hard work. It's important to nurture ourselves so that we can nurture our children. I was just listening to Brene Brown talking about the gifts of imperfect parenting. And one of the things she says that I find so striking and really so true is that we cannot offer to our children that which we don't have. And so if we are not taking care of ourselves and nurturing ourselves, it becomes virtually impossible to offer care and nurture to our children in a way that that is really fulfilling. And this last piece is about unconventional wisdom. So what do I want to say about unconventional wisdom? Unconventional wisdom, my thought is that so much of the advice that we get about how to be a parent doesn't really work. And it doesn't work not because it's not smart or well-intentioned. It doesn't work because it's based on a faulty premise. So again, if you think that your job is to control your children, then chances are that the things that you do get in the way. And so I, again, go back to this first point around children want to feel connected. And from there, from this piece of really this assumption, everything else comes out of that. The other thing I'm going to say about unconventional wisdom is that the more parents I talk to, the more it becomes clear to me that the way we are in life, the way we think, the strategies that we have to be successful in life actually are often not the same strategies that we need to be successful as parents. So just think about that for a minute. The strategies that you have used to get through school, to get an advanced degree, to be successful in your career, those strategies actually are not the same set of strategies that you will need to be a successful parent. So if you are feeling like, you're really smart and you're really successful and things are really good, but why is parenting so hard? I would argue that this is probably why. So just to recap, children want to belong and feel connected. As the adults, we get to choose whether we react out of habit or respond with intention. Parenting is hard work. It's important to nurture ourselves so we can nurture our children. And I just encourage you to play with this idea of unconventional wisdom. Like, what is it that I think I'm supposed to do now? And what would happen if I just did the opposite? We'll talk a little bit more about that. So let's get into the science a little bit. And let's talk just for a few minutes about the stress response. So the research tells us, I'm just looking at my notes, the research tells us that we all have our own habitual patterns of losing our cool, of losing our temper, losing our composure, however you want to say it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this picture of the brain that's sitting on the bottom of this slide. So if you could, in the very center of the brain of this picture, imagine a tiny little almond-shaped part of the brain. It's called the amygdala. So we're going to talk a little bit about the amygdala, and then we're going to talk about the prefrontal cortex, which is on the left side of the picture. The prefrontal cortex on the left side, this would be the part of your brain that sits right behind your forehead. And on the right side of the brain, that would be the back of your head, just to orient things. So, what happens is, like, we wake up in the morning and, hopefully we wake up and things are fairly calm, but then something happens and then something else happens. And then maybe something happens that doesn't feel safe. And so the job of our amygdala, that little almond-shaped part of the brain that's really sort of in the center of the brain, the amygdala has one job. And the amygdala's job is to ask the question, am I safe? That's it. That's the important question. And depending on the response to that question, different things happen in your brain. So let's imagine you're walking down the street, your amygdala is kind of hanging out, you ask the question, am I safe? And if the answer is yes, the good news is then all the information that's coming in actually gets flows through to the prefrontal cortex. And the job of the prefrontal cortex, or what happens in the prefrontal cortex, has to do with what we call executive functioning. And executive functioning has to do with delayed gratification, making good choices, problem solving, and how we interact with people and the world around us. If, however, you are someplace and the amygdala is asking its question, am I safe? And the answer is no, then something completely different happens. And we call that the amygdala hijack, because what happens is the amygdala then is really going to support, is going to sort of, the amygdala takes over, and the stress response takes over to keep us safe. And what that means and what happens is that we no longer have access to problem solving and the executive functions of the prefrontal cortex. So just to say it again. So, and let me say a little bit about stress. So, stress gets a really bad rap, but the truth of the matter is that none of us would be here listening to this. I would not be here if it wasn't for stress. And this is why, because stress is about keeping us safe, about reacting to threats in our environment, so that our ancestors way back when they saw the tiger or the lion or someone coming after them, the stress response is what keeps us safe and gets us out of the way. So more blood to the muscles, digestion shuts down, our eyes dilate so we can take in more light. I think maybe I said that the wrong way, but anyway, our heart starts pumping, and there's adrenaline that goes through the body so that our heart can pump and we can move and run and get out of the way. That's the purpose of stress. The purpose of stress is to keep us safe. However, in our modern busy world, we actually have that stress response even in moments when we are not, when our lives are not actually physically threatened. And many of us live with sort of a low-grade chronic stress response in our bodies. And we know that stress response that happens in our bodies affects our mood. So way more anxiety and depression as a response to stress hormones. It affects our health. So it affects things like blood pressure and how our heart works and our digestion and all kinds of intestinal tract disorders. It affects the way that we relate to other people. So when we're stressed, the other thing that happens, right? So we're stressed, we don't actually need to have a lot of things to consider. So when we're stressed, our focus narrows down to just a few options. And so our problem solving and our ability to relate to other people is also limited. So we are going to talk a little bit, that was a little bit about the science. And you can tell I love this part and I could go on for a long, long time, but I'm not going to. We are now going to talk about what happens when we lose our temper, and we're going to break it down into this before, during, and after. So in front of you, you will now see this nice little chart of emotional intensity over time. So on the numbers on the left indicate the emotional intensity, and on the bottom you will see over time. So let's say you wake up in the morning and you're kind of at a 1, you're just hanging out. And I'll give you a perfect example. So yesterday, I woke up, I was in a good mood. My daughter and I had breakfast. I asked her to get ready to go to school. I asked her to put her shoes on, and she decided that she needed to go upstairs and get a shirt upstairs. And she was insisting that I stand at the bottom of the stairs, and I actually just didn't want to. I just wasn't in the mood to be told what to do, but we had to have a huge battle of the wills, a huge power struggle over it. until my daughter was really, she was really, really screaming. And so she went from 1, she went all the way up to 5. And that horizontal line that goes across 5, that's the during part. And that is actually sort of the amygdala hijack. And in that moment, here's the really important thing. In that moment, you can't actually try to use logic with your kids. So I think what happens is, for many of us, when our kids are tantruming or screaming or in that moment that's really challenging, it's frustrating for us because we just want to talk to them logically. And so yesterday I found myself refraining from saying to my daughter, honey, you can go upstairs by yourself. But she was up there in the 5 and she's like, I'm scared and I don't want to, and I need you to come up with me. And she was really stuck in this place and did not have access to her usual cool, calm, collected, logical prefrontal cortex executive functions. Here's the interesting thing, and this is actually a slide that I use when I talk about kids who have tantrums. So you'll notice that the slide goes across the 5, and then there's a place where it starts to go from, it goes from the 5 to the 4. And in that little place, particularly when kids are tantruming, this is the place where they go from being really, really angry to actually just being sad. And this is that little line between the 5 line and the 4 line over on the right-hand side. That is the place where you can then reconnect with your children. And I guess I just want to stop for a moment and say that this chart looks different for everybody. And learning what your style and your chart or your map looks like actually can help you get a better handle on how you respond to your kids and and what you do when you lose your cool. But to go back to the chart in front of us, so 5 to 4, and then from 4, it goes back down to 1. And the thing about this chart is that this could be over a few minutes, this whole chart. It could be over a few hours. It could even be over days or weeks or longer. So it will depend on the situation. It depends on the context, and it depends on the individual. So again, this chart looks different for everybody. All right, we are going to keep going. And so we are now getting to the really juicy part where I am going to share some of my favorite strategies for how to keep your cool. And again, I'll go back to that example of my daughter getting ready in the morning. So I know I said I was going to share 3 strategies, but I just couldn't resist. So the first thing I'm going to tease you with a little bit is this idea of the magic words. And there are actually magic words that you can use before you get into those challenging moments where you lose your cool. And here are the 3 strategies for before. So we talked about these superhero strategies, the way you think about time, the way you think about space, and the way you think about your secret superpower. So we're going to talk about each one of these one at a time. First, we're going to talk about time. So here are a few important things to know about time. Kids engaged in something. Oh, I wonder if that means, I'm going to keep going. There was a little ding, but I'm not sure if that was me or not. They don't actually switch from one thing to another as quickly as we can. So our minds can switch from one thing to another, but kids don't have that piece. So here's the thing. Here's the way it works. In our house, we need to be out the door at 7:30 in order to get to school by 8 o'clock. So that means that at 7:15, I am actually going to start early, and at 7:15, I'm going to say to my daughter, I need you to get your shoes on. And while it would be lovely if that's actually what my daughter did right away, chances are it's not what she's going to do. And this, I think, is really where a lot of us get confused. So we want to be able to say to our kid, like, just do it and have it be done. But if that's not actually the way that kids' minds work, then we run into trouble. So I'm going to suggest that we start 15 minutes early with get your shoes on. Wait 5 minutes. And then 5 minutes later, I'll say, this is the second time I'm telling you, you need to get your shoes on. And then I just wait. And I wait a couple of minutes. And, you know, it says 5 minutes here. It could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 6 or 7, but you get the general idea of it. The third time, I say, honey, you need to get your shoes on now. You can do it yourself, or I'm going to help you. I'm going to count to 5, and then I'm going to help you get your shoes on. And I want to say that this works best with kids probably between the ages of 2 and 6. I feel like my daughter, who's turned 6 just a few months ago, is probably getting close to the end of to the end of the range where it's effective to do this, because really what you want to do is help your kids learn how to do this when they're young, so that when they are older, you don't need to do it anymore. So a little bit about time. Let's talk about space. And this really is often the place where I find that I get myself in the most trouble. So space, where are you in your house? Physically, literally, where are you? Often I find that I'm in the kitchen and that my daughter's in another room. And I just start to yell at her because I just want her to hear me. But that yelling from one room to the other is actually a trigger in my body that starts to trigger the stress emotion for me. So one way to avoid that is, before you start to raise your voice and yell from one room to the other, is to actually walk over to your kid and to get his attention and really look at him and wait until he looks at you. So again, this is about being present. So it's about being present in the moment and to check in and be like, oh, I'm in one room and she's in another. No wonder we're yelling. And then walking over so that you can actually stand and be present with your kid. And you don't even need to say anything. This is the beauty of it. You just walk over to your kid and stand there and wait. And when they look at you, then you're like, oh, connection. This is about connection. This is about physical proximity, but it's also about connection and the bond that we have with our kids. I'm a huge fan that raising kids, and I guess the other thing I really want to say is, when we do, my experience and what I've seen is that when we create strong connections with our children when they're young, then as they grow up, we can use these connections to help them navigate the more challenging parts of growing up. And by that, I mean, I think a lot about my daughter when she becomes a teenager and needs to have access to good problem solving and making good choices for herself and delayed gratification and knowing how to engage with other kids. Those are all super important things for teenagers. And my hope is that I'm actually helping her develop those skills now as a 6-year-old, so that when she gets to be a teenager, it won't feel like I'm trying to teach her something new. So I hope that makes sense. So we covered time, we covered space, and now for your superpower. We like to think that we are really good at multitasking. And earlier when I talked about strategies that we have used in the past to help us be successful, I think multitasking is probably pretty high on most people's lists. Here's the thing. Neuroscience, the research says there is no such thing as multitasking. In fact, when we switch from one activity to another, and when we switch our focus from one thing to another, we actually lose a little bit of our attention, and we use more energy. So that really, it's way more powerful to not try to multitask. And so your superpower, should you choose to use it, is do one thing at a time. A few months ago, I asked my daughter what the most important thing to me was, just because I was curious and I thought it was a fun question. And she looked at me and she rolled her eyes and she sighed and she said, "Oh, Mama, your favorite thing, the most important thing to you in the world is do one thing at a time." And what I really love about this, I love this because, one, it lets me off the hook. And two, it really is modeling for my child. I'm really living the fact that I want to be present with whatever it is I'm doing in the moment. So in our house, what this looks like is, often what this looks like is I'm in the kitchen making dinner and I'm doing my thing. And I don't know about you, but in my house, as soon as it's dinner time, somehow things just get lost. Nothing can be found. And so my daughter's constantly coming and asking me to help her find something, or she needs to start a craft project and she needs materials. But of course, she wants to feel connected. And one way to do that is to come into the kitchen and say, "Mama, I need your help with whatever it is." And so my response to her is, "I hear you. I understand that you need help. What am I doing right now?" She's like, "Oh, well, you're making dinner." And I say, "Yes. And how many things can I do at a time?" And she says, "One. You do one thing at a time." And I said, "Yes. So let me finish this part of what I'm doing, and then I will be happy to help you." And I just find that it helps me calm myself down. So doing one thing at a time is your superpower. I would love to hear how it goes for you if you decide to try it out. Yeah. So these are the things, these are the strategies for what to do before you, oh, no wonder, sorry. Before you get into that challenging, yelling, screaming, frustrating, overwhelmed kind of place. I'm going to stop here and pause just for a moment. Let's just check time and see how we're doing. Oh dear. Okay. So I think I'm going to just keep moving forward. So this is what we do before. So now let's move to during. So here are some strategies for what to do in the moment as soon as you notice that you're yelling. The most important thing is to stop and give yourself a break. And realize that you don't actually need to fix what's going on for your kid right now. You don't need to do anything. You need to just pause. And in a few moments, I'm going to teach you a short mindfulness exercise that I call the pause button. Before I do that, I want you to look at this lovely picture of the couch, and I'm just going to tell you that in our house, and yesterday when my daughter was, wow, she was screaming. It was so, and I really, what do I want to say? I felt helpless and I felt really mad because it was not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to have a screaming match with her. So in our house, when I notice that I am yelling, I actually just sit down on the couch and calm myself down. And she was screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming. And I just took the time to check in with myself so that I could self-regulate before I tried to figure out what needed to happen with her. And the truth is, like, she's okay. So just remember the couch. I sit down on the couch, and usually my daughter sort of eventually sees me sitting on the couch and we can make eye contact, and then I can invite her to come and sit down with me. And then we can go into what happens next. So the question that I have for you here is, what is it that you I feel like, what do I want to say? I think most of us, many of us, speak for myself, I still lose my cool. And I think it's less important that I lose my cool and more important what I do about it afterwards. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about the after strategies. And I feel like if you only take one thing away from this, this webinar today and our time together, it would be to think about after you lose your cool, after you yell at your kid, in that moment when you feel guilty and you're giving yourself a hard time and you feel like you're not doing a good job as a parent, first of all, give yourself a break and be gentle with yourself. But remember that you are the adult and you're going to model and teach your kid how to reconnect because that's what they really want. So the words I have here are repair, connect, and teach. So your kids may be freaked out that you lost your cool, that you lost control, that you yelled or screamed at them. They might actually be worried about their connection with you. And here's the thing, they might be worried about their connection with you and not show it in the ways that you think they're going to show it. Losing control can be scary for you and for your kids. And so the question I have is, what does repair and repairing the relationship look like for you? What does it look like for you? What does it look like for your kids? For us, we go back, we sit on this couch. So we're both sitting on the couch, and the questions that I can ask my daughter or that she asks me are you okay? And what do you need? And if you've been following me at all, you'll know that I like these questions way better than saying, I'm sorry. So you can say, I'm sorry. You can say, wow, I am really sorry that I lost my cool. Are you okay? And what do you need? And actually yesterday when I asked my daughter, what do you need? She said, I just need a little more attention. So this is really, really powerful. And someone recently asked me, well, really, does this work? So the answer is yes, this really works. So just as a reminder, here's the chart that we talked about at the beginning, emotional intensity over time. Again, this looks different for everybody. And in the spirit of unconventional wisdom, I want to share that it's not about what you say in the moment, but what you do before and after that matters the most. All right, the magic words. So I did promise you some magic words. Here are the magic words. Too often we ask our children to do things in the ways that we think we would like to be spoken to. So would you put your toys away? Can you get your shirt on? Would you like to get your shoes on? When really the words that they need to hear are, I need you to clean up your toys. Or maybe it's, you need to get your shoes on. So these are two phrases that I recommend that you put into your parenting toolkit. And then the last one is the magic, I'm going to count to 5. And I had someone recently ask me, does that really work, that counting to 5? My answer is, does it work with all kids all the time? No. Does it work with most kids most of the time? Yes. And here's why it works. It works because kids want to be in control of themselves. They want to be able to make their own choices, and our job is to inspire them to want to make the right choices and to create containers for them and boundaries so that they know that they're safe. And I'm going to count to 5 both inspires them and creates a boundary. And so this is what it looks like. So I might say to my daughter after several times, honey, I'm going to count to 5 and then I need you to get your shoes on. 1, 2, 3. And usually by then my daughter has her shoes on. But here's the thing, if I get to 5, then I say to her, wow, okay, so I'm going to help you now. And help her means, like, if I need to hold her down and put her shoes on, I'm going to hold her down and put her shoes on, because she's actually given up the choice to do it for herself. So, yeah. And someone also recently asked me, was like, oh, we count to 3. So I don't, again, because I think kids' understanding of time is different than ours, I don't think 3 gives kids enough time to let go of what it is that they think they want to be doing. So 5 gives them enough time to be like, oh, I need to wrap my head around the fact that if I don't do this myself, my parent is going to do it for me. Oh, so I promised to teach you a little bit about the pause button. And so I am going to teach you about the pause button right now. So wherever you are, we're really going to take a pause. I'm going to invite you to sit in such a way that you have both feet flat on the ground. Notice the chair supporting your body. And you can even imagine the chair sort of being connected with the floor, being connected with the ground below you, just having a sense of groundedness in this place. I'm going to invite you to sit in such a way that that you feel dignified and relaxed. So you want your body to be relaxed, but not slouched back. Sometimes it's helpful to sit on the edge of your chair and think about your spine, really holding your body up in a dignified manner, and the front of your body and your shoulders relaxing and melting. You can put your palms on your lap, face down. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes. And if you're keeping your eyes open, I recommend allowing your gaze to fall gently on just one spot. And now bringing your awareness to wherever it is in your body that you are most aware of your breath. So just noticing, is it your nose, the back of your throat, your chest, your belly? And just feel your breath for a few moments. And as you become aware of your inhale and your exhale, the breath coming into your body and leaving your body, I'm going to ask you to take 3 slow, deep breaths. And with your first inhale, really bringing the air all the way down to the bottom of your belly and filling up your torso as though you were filling a glass of water from the bottom to the top. And at the top of your inhale, taking just a moment to pause and notice when the inhale turns to an exhale, and letting all the air release from your body from the top to the bottom. And again, slowly inhaling, feeling your torso fill up. And then exhaling very slowly. There's no place to go, no place to get to, no rush, just feeling the air as it leaves your body. When you get to the bottom of that exhale, seeing if there's an extra little squeeze, there's a little more air that you can get out of the bottom of your lungs. Imagining your lungs fully deflated. And then as you need to, taking a new inhale. And noticing, if you were able to have a full exhale, that this inhale brings in lots of fresh air, fresh, clean air. Exhaling. And then one more slow breath. Whenever you get to the bottom of that third exhale, allowing your breath to return to its normal rhythm. And that's it. That's really it. Just taking a moment to notice how you feel. You can let your eyes gently open again and come back to the space. But taking a moment just to check in with your body. What does it feel like? The short version of this is really just to feel your feet on the ground and to take 3 deep breaths. And we know that these 3 breaths actually change the physiology of the body. So it actually helps the amygdala when you take 3 deep breaths. It helps it to calm down just a little bit. The next time you notice that you are getting worked up, I recommend that you just try this little pause. And again, so we talked earlier about how hard it is to create new habits. The pause button is about creating a new habit. And so here are the steps. We did the first 2 today. We did stop, take 3 slow, deep breaths. If we had more time, I would lead you through a little check-in to see what is here now. Again, this idea of being present in this moment, to feel, to just be, and to connect. Really important things. And then to be curious about what you notice without making judgments. Here's what I know about the pause button and about this practice of slowing down and being present. When I practice this, when I actually am making it part of my daily ritual and my habits, I am a much less reactive parent. I am much more able to really respond with intention. And if this is something that you are interested in doing and you would like to learn how to do this more often, how to make this pause and this slowing down and presence part of your habit, stay tuned, because I have come up with an amazing solution for this. So let's review what we've done today. I talked about the how of keeping your calm. So this idea that there's science behind it, there are specific strategies that we talked about, and that really at the end of the day, it's always, 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 always only about love. We talked about when, right? The before, during, and after. So again, this idea of how do we avoid it from happening? What strategies can we use before? What do we do when we notice that we've lost our calm? And then afterwards, how do we repair? And again, I really encourage you to think about the after and the repair part. The what. So the what are the strategies, and these were really the before strategies, right? The time, space, superpowers, and the magic words. And then this pause button. Feel your feet on the ground and take 3 deep breaths. So, what questions do you have? Oh, so what happens when when my kid loses their cool in the supermarket? That's always a good question. And what I recommend is that you need to stop. You need to stop what you're doing, and you need to decide if you can figure out how to move forward together, like what is it that your kid really needs, or if it's really a case of picking your kid up, abandoning your grocery cart, and walking out of the grocery store. And I can say that I have had to do this once with my child. I think she was probably 2.5. And she threw this huge fit, and I just picked her up and I walked out of the grocery store and I said, you can't do this. You may not have a fit like this in the grocery store. You can be mad, you can be frustrated, you can be sad, but you cannot scream and have a fit and a total meltdown, because we just don't do that in the grocery store. And I'm happy to talk more. Again, what I really believe is that it's about you and your kids and coming up with solutions that really make sense to you. So if you have specific questions, I'm going to encourage you to email me and let me know what they are. I'd love to talk to you. So I have created this idea of the Happy Mindful Mastermind. And really it comes from years of talking with parents. So again, the idea is to get solutions to solve your top parenting struggles specific to you and your family. The second part is about being part of a kind and gentle community. And I feel like this part is so important. So many of us feel isolated and alone, and it makes the difficult job of parenting even more difficult. So part of what I'm hoping to provide for people, what I really want to offer, is this idea of community. I also want parents to feel more confident in your parenting decisions. And I think the way to do this is to, again, this idea of the pause and creating new habits and reconnecting with your own wisdom and the joy of parenting. It's really about yelling less often. I've put stop yelling, but I haven't figured out how to stop yelling, so I'll just say it's really about yelling less often. And making the pause button part of your parenting toolkit along with other powerful strategies. So what I know about the pause button and about slowing down practices and mindfulness practices that really help me be present with my children in the moment is that, much like exercising, it doesn't really work if you only do it once in a while. It's really about creating a regular habit. And the best way to create a regular habit is to have a community of like-minded people to support you and help you stay accountable. How it works. So the Happy Mindful Mastermind is limited to 6 people. It will be 6 weeks long, starting on June 2nd. And it consists of hour-long calls with me in the small group. And again, my idea was that it's hard enough to make time for ourselves, but what would it be like to make time for ourselves that really, really nourished ourselves? So, so you don't have to go anywhere, and you don't need to get a sitter. You can just do this from your phone or online. There will be a private Facebook community just for us, and the investment for having this kind of coaching, for having accountability, for learning the strategies over these 6 weeks, for really building new habits, is $297. But wait, here's the bonus. The bonus is if you register with me within the next 48 hours, and today is Wednesday, May 20th, and well, there you go. So today is Wednesday, May 20th, and so if you register within the next 48 hours, you will also get a 45-minute private consultation with me, which will be all about finding solutions for you and your family. And the way to register is really just to connect with me. Send me an email. Send me any questions you have at Andra@happymindfulfamilies.com. I am really happy to talk to you. So if you have questions about anything that we've covered today, or questions about how the mastermind works, again, just send me an email and we'll figure it out together. So that's it. Thank you very much. I'm really, really thank you. I know how valuable your time is, and I hope that this webinar was useful and helpful, and that you have some strategies that you can use. Again, my name is Andra Brill. I am the founder of Happy Mindful Families. You have been listening to Calm and Confident Parenting, 3 steps to keeping your cool when your kids are losing theirs. And there's also a Facebook page. So if you are not part of Mindful Parenting Solutions, hop on over and join us over there, and we can continue the conversation. Thank you so much. Bye.